Well, welcome everyone. As you can see, I've got a couple of decent cricketers with me, Moises Henriques and also Chris Green from New South Wales Cricket, and of course from the Sixers and the Thunder. And off air, we've already given each other a little clip, which is great. I've been the on-ground announcer for both, but the Sixers won it when I was there, so I'm more magenta than I am lime green. But thank you, boys.
Yeah, I thought we were done giving each other a clip.
Yeah. It's wonderful to have both of you on board, and this is really a chat around Gotcha for Life and around what I call mental fitness. And both of you guys have been fantastic. The way that you've thrown away the rules on what it takes to be a man over the last few years when you've had stuff thrown at you, and you've been really open, honest and vulnerable. And it's been fantastic as someone in that field to have two high-profile blokes, you know, show the way. So just wanted to have a chat with both of you and see how you're coping and how you're going, and perhaps our listeners and viewers will pick up something that might help them along the way. So Moises, I'll start the ball rolling with you, mate. I suppose you were the first one, I suppose a few years ago now, who said something that I've been saying for a long time: stop looking at my Insta. My life is a lot different to that. Could you let everyone know who don't know the story, how you were feeling at that time and why you thought it was important to let people know the truth?
Well, in reference to the Insta comment, which was only a couple of months ago, I think I'd look back and just looking at my own Instagram page, and I was posting photos of, you know, myself and my wife and my baby when we're all smiles. And I just felt like I was a little bit guilty of, you know, just posting the highlights. And I'd done a fair bit of reading and stuff over the last few years on my journey back from, you know, my depths of depression, and just reading and learning about, you know, how as human beings we use reference points, and we often compare ourselves to other people socially and so on. So once I realized that what I was doing on that Instagram page with my young boy and with wife was actually, you know, only really posting the highlights. You know, it wasn't, you know, you never ever posting when he's crying or when I'm crying or when she's crying. You know, it's always the good times. It's not when we're, you know, waking up at 1:30 a.m., 3:30 a.m., 5:30 a.m., changing nappies, cleaning up vomit and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of, I just wanted it to be a reminder for anyone that might have looked at the page and thought, you know, this is the perfect life. You know, is always happy, is always, you know, but I just wanted to remind people, I guess, that, you know, there's no such thing as the perfect life, and it's always, you know, it's just a journey that we're all on, you know, and we're all just trying to learn from each moment, I guess. But it's basically that, yeah, that Insta post was a little bit more about, you know, just trying to remind people that, you know, that to use your own, I guess, to try and use your own reference points, because it's quite often other reference points aren't always that accurate, especially on social media. So, you know, that was a big one for me, just to remind everyone that at that particular time, you know, although it looked like on Instagram that everything was hooly-dooly and happy, but, you know, there was still a few challenges here and there, that's for sure. And there still are.
Of course. I think we can throw away perfect. It's something that I've picked up in the last few months with COVID on top of everything else is, yeah, let's throw away perfect and do our best. And, you know, you're going to have ups and downs, and that's the roller coaster that life brings us. When I think of you playing cricket and the success that you've had and the fact you've got that baggy green, which is something that all of us would just so dearly love, I do sort of talk to Smithy a lot, because obviously Smithy did so much work with Gotcha for Life after what happened in South Africa. And I picked up something from him, is that, you know, life is never quite the way that it seems, no matter where you are, no matter who you are. For you, the depression and the anxiety and the feeling that you had when everyone would look at you and go, look at him, you know, he's captain of teams, he's representing at the highest level. How important was it for you, and how hard was it for you to eventually come out a couple of years ago and say that things aren't quite as they seem?
Look, the decision to speak publicly about it at the end of the day, it was a really easy one for me. And I think just the fact that I'd gotten through that point and sort of, because when I was at my worst, I wasn't comfortable talking about it at all. Like, and I wish I was, but I look back now, and it's one of the biggest regrets I had was keeping it inside for so long. But once everything was fine, that's when I was obviously confident enough just to talk about it, because I realized that, geez, if I can help someone speak a little bit earlier when they're at their depths, maybe they won't get to the point that I'd gotten to, or maybe if they've even picked up on a couple of little symptoms that they may have noticed, that, you know, that they can relate to in what I went through, then maybe they could try and nip it in the bud a bit earlier, with some, you know, positive lifestyle choices or behaviors and so on. But, you know, by the time I'd sort of come out and educated myself about it and everything like that and done a bit of work, it was really easy to speak publicly about it. It was a really easy decision, and something I really wanted to do. And definitely I wanted to start giving back in the space, because I do remember when I was at my depths, it was like, I wouldn't have wished like my worst enemy to go through what I was going through. It was like what the mind can do and what it can trick itself into believing and so on was just, I look back and I struggled to comprehend that it was the same person. And it's just at the end of the day, it's just a perception shift, and a massive one at that. But, you know, my life hasn't changed at all. You know, I'm equally bad at cricket as I was 3 years ago. And, you know, like there's nothing any different. You know, my performances are the same. If not, I was probably performing better at the time. You know, I do remember when I felt that way, it was probably one of the best years I'd had, you know, to date, and was almost when I was at my worst. But, you know, it led to, as soon as I missed out a couple of times and as soon as that form ran out, you know, and I'd made a couple of other big life decisions around that, it was just a slippery roller coaster and a quick reminder that, you know, as soon as you slip away from the things that you do well, you know, it can so quickly build up. But to be fair, the decision to go public, and that's the problem, is we're all comfortable talking when things are great and when things are good. You know, and that's when I did end up coming out and talking and speaking publicly, is when I was actually confident enough to do so. But, you know, it's also taught me, you know, since then, it hasn't been, you know, roses and happy times either, but learning what I've learned from going through that's, you know, helped me nip similar situations in the bud again.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate too, and I love seeing Bubba and Mama walking behind you there. That's
Yeah.
that's real life, isn't it? Greenie,
right.
Greenie, you've been through the ringer, mate. You were flying, things were going so well from you. You were getting picked up by every T20 team in all these different parts of the world. Every time I saw you, you're on a business class flight flying off to put on another jersey. And then you and I chatted round Manly one day, and you said, you know, that's also, you know, that life isn't always the same. It's a bit more difficult than that. And then, of course, you've had this drama with your action. How are you, mate, for the people that know about that? And can you explain what you've been going through the past 6 months or so?
Yeah, I'm okay as I can be, if I have to be honest. There are days, I mean, like any day, I really just rode the wave through this. There are days where it's frustrating, and you know, I think particularly at the start, sitting on the bench watching cricket, not being injured was the toughest. Feeling sort of helpless, and not really knowing what to do. You know, I kicked and dragged my feet around for a couple of days, and then, you know, I sort of sat back and was thinking, you know, this isn't that bad. I'm a professional cricketer. I'm missing the sport that I love for only 90 days. There are far bigger issues out there, and sort of used it as I look to try and use it as a time where, you know, I can actually devote some time to my family and friends and girlfriend that have devoted and sacrificed so much for me, and try and give back. And I guess coronavirus has just allowed me to extend that 90 days a little bit longer than was planned. But yeah, no, if I'm honest, there've been days that have been pretty poor. But then there've been days there, you know, I forget about it and feel like a normal human being. I don't feel like a cricketer. I just feel like a person. And I've gone down for a stroll, whether it be, you know, by myself or with Bella, or catching up with a mate for a coffee, and have really enjoyed it. And, you know, if this didn't happen, or coronavirus didn't happen, I don't think I would have been able to solidify a lot of my friendships and relationships that I have. So I think it's, you know, when faced with, or for me in particular, being faced with adversity, particularly when it was as unexpected as it was, and sort of took me by surprise, and how, you know, potentially drastic it still can be, is okay, what can I then bring my focus on? And yeah, I just saw it and still see it as a time where, you know, I can try and give back to those who've given me so much already. And you know, I think I can spend time worrying about it and what if, and what could go wrong, and continue on that downward spiral. Or I can think about, you know, I'd be positive and upbeat about it, and look for ways to devote my time and attention in the right facet.
For people who don't know, you were questioned, your particular style of bowling was questioned. Where are we with that? What do you have to do to get yourself back on the field again?
Yeah, so pre-COVID, or whatever we call this time, it was looking really good. I did my last test in Brisbane, practice test. It was 2 weeks out before my 90th day, and all my numbers. So I have to bowl 18 balls, and they have to be 15 degrees or lower. My last test, all deliveries were between 1 and 7 degrees, and my quicker ball, which was the issue, I think last time I bowled, when I failed the test, it was between 11 and 18. And that had come down to 1 to 3 degrees. So I was really stoked with that. And that left me feeling, you know, obviously pretty positive and excited to get the test done and get it behind me, and, you know, use it as an opportunity, just as a learning experience or extended training break. And then obviously found the news that borders had shut down. And yeah, for a month or 2 months, pretty much this whole time until 2 weeks ago, until I found out I could go back up again. I was, again, not knowing how long this would last for, and I just wanted to sort of move past it. So, I'm feeling as confident as I can be, but still as nervous as ever, because if I make one slip up there, I get a year ban. So, there's obviously, pretty drastic consequence, but, you know, I'm trying to stay positive and think about how all the hard work and where it's at and how it's looking, and hopefully I get the green light through it all.
How much did you have to change your action, Greenie?
It hasn't changed too much. Well, I don't feel like it has. It more just took the focus and attention of getting my body working together. So when my technique broke down before, and I went into, I guess, forcing territory with my action, if you like, that's when it looked its worst and was at its worst. And the whole procedure it was at its worst in the game that I got reported, and then in the test I have to replicate that. So it's a tough process to pass if you've got bad technique. So, you know, a batsman has bad technique, he nicks off, he's going to go up and try and replicate that technique, and of course he's probably going to nick off again. For me, I had to do that, and that's just what they've got in place. So there wasn't, you know, any reason to try and dispute it. It's just I've got to get through it, and try and put it behind me and use it as what has been a really good learning experience. And as I say, a good opportunity to spend the best part of, from the 2nd of January till now, as an extended training block, working on this new technique that's taken place well. And I'm feeling like I'm pretty much bowling at my best, which is really exciting.
What's it like, Moses? You know, Greenie will often bowl at least the first over or so in the derby. You're not opening the batting these days. So do you get to face him much?
No, look, Greenie's, and I say this because I've been lucky enough to play with him for New South Wales, and also in a team together in Canada. He's someone you'd much rather play with than against. He's a great competitor, but he's what a lot of players don't see until you play with him. He's a fantastic team man as well to have on your team. A really good person on and off the field for all the viewers as well. You can tell he comes from a fantastic family. He's beautiful manners, well spoken, as you can see. He's got the looks. He's got the looks to go with it. So it was about time something bad went on in his life when he got called for those. You always prefer to play with blokes like Greenie than play against them. And I really believe that, as much as pains me to see him in the lime green rather than the magenta. He's much better. He's much better bloke to have on your team than against. A really nice guy once you get to spend a bit of time with him. He comes across on the TV and whatever you see when you play against him as, this confident sort of guy, and he is. But it's not arrogance. It's just a really positive mindset and confidence in what he's going to put out, and a great ability, and just wants those balls in those wants to bowl in the challenging moment, wants to bat in the challenging moments. And I'm not surprised at all he's handled this adversity like he has, and he's looking to the positive side and taking it as a challenge rather than a threat.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Sorry, Greenie, we're talking about you and you're sitting right there, but no, you are
Thanks, This is very kind words.
You're a very good person. However, that haircut, mate, I'm not sure about that. What's the story with that? Did you do that yourself in isolation or what?
Yeah, I got a bit bored early on, Gus, and shaved it all off. So it's in that awkward length where, I'm trying my best to grow it back, but it's doing a slow process. So I don't want to go back to the start. I'm happy to try and get back to somewhat normality.
And Bella's still with you, mate? Everything's okay there? Nothing you need to talk to us about? All good?
No, she wants her to go back shorter for some reason. I think she's a bit blind, or love is blind, they say. So no, she's killing it. She did it tough at the start, but of the coronavirus saga and losing all her jobs. But she's a trooper, and she's flying through and fighting through it. So she's been my rock through it all, and I'm very lucky to have her.
It's lovely to hear.
I can say that because she's not here as well. If she was here, I wouldn't have said that.
That's very nice of you to say. Let's talk about and what do you think about the word, boys, both of you, mental fitness rather than talking about mental health? Because I feel mental health does have a negative connotation as soon as you hear the phrase. So I'm trying to talk to, especially when we talk to blokes who might be really blokey and perhaps don't want to talk about their feelings and stuff, and they don't want to go there as being vulnerable, but also school kids, they understand physical fitness. And so you can give yourself a mark out of 10 for your physical fitness. Well, what's your mental fitness? And then if it's not 8, 9 or 10 out of 10, then you've got exercises to do to make those numbers better. With physical fitness, eat better, eat healthier, move more, gyms, blah, blah, blah. But what are the exercises for mental fitness? And I find the conversation is a bit easier to talk about. Moises, firstly to you, have you heard that term? And do you think that term's one that might help us move the conversation to something that's a bit easier for blokes?
Yeah, look, I've heard, and I completely agree with you there, Gus. I think, as soon as someone says, mental health, it's kind of like, I don't want to talk about that. Like, and it's not until you sort of, you either know someone that's really close to you that's gone through it and you see the effects that they've had, that it's had on them, or you go through it yourself, that you really start to take it seriously and realize how important it is. And just like your physical health, it's not, it's not stagnant. It's constant. It's a dynamic process, and if you don't do your exercises and your little things that, as you mentioned, to work on it, it will get worse, just like your physical health. So, it's definitely something that can always be worked on, no matter how bad you're feeling. It's not permanent. It's only temporary. And it's the same as your physical health. Your physical health is never permanent. It's only temporary, and it's only, and I look at it, both of them the same way. You only get out what you put in. If you want to start feeling better mentally, put some work into it. And it's going to be hard. It'll be very hard at the start. It'll be very hard to get started. But once you get started, And you know, it might take a little while to start seeing those rewards, but when you do, you're reminded, and you see, and you realize, I should have been doing this the whole time. You know, I can't believe I lived a different way before, because, you know, it's just so important to work on. And you know, one of the best things I've ever learned is that nothing in life is the only guarantee in life is that everything is temporary. You know, even life itself. So there's, you know, your mental and physical health is never permanent. And if you think you're happy, you've just got to keep on working on that, because you can never take happiness and joy for granted.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Greenie, what are your thoughts listening to that?
Yeah, look, I think Moses hit the nail on the head there. The way sort of I see it is, and what excites me about it is it really is an investment in yourself, and you are really investing everything in yourself. And I think obviously physical health can be a slow burner, but I think mental health can obviously fluctuate a lot quicker and a lot greater than your physical health. And I really see it as, you know, just whether it be taking that time to go and do something for you is really important. And it just sort of, whether it just be hitting the refresh button, or, you know, igniting that focus into where you actually are at, and doing that little check-in, as you say, with a mental fitness check-in, and go, well, what is my score? It's lower than I'd like it to be, or I'm feeling flatter than I feel like I should be. Okay, I need to now devote some time and have some techniques for me that I know will try and get me to somewhere near the level scale, and know that that's going to take time as well. It's not just a quick flick the switch. It's like, you know, I had 10 beers last night. I'm not going to go and run 20 Ks and then wake up with a 6-pack. It's you know, it is going to be a slow burn, as Moses said, and take the time and effort. But I think just having the awareness around it and bringing that awareness within yourself is something that can be really powerful, because, you know, you're only going to be letting you down, not anyone else, if you don't do it.
When I started my journey sort of back in going back nearly 4 years now. So 2016, when I did the program Man Up on the ABC, we've had over 70 million views now, which has been amazing. We gave it away to the world and people have watched it. And it was basically me challenging masculinity in this country and why we're losing so many beautiful blokes every day to suicide. The numbers aren't going down. The number is over 6 a day now, every day. It's the number one way to die if you're an Australian male aged between 15 and 44. The numbers in under 10s are going up. The numbers in over 70s are going up. And we're losing 2 to 3 beautiful women every day too. And most women, there's 68,000 attempts, and most of those are women that were unsuccessful last year. So we've got a massive problem in this country, and we need to look at what it takes to be a man and what it takes to be a woman, and pick out all the good bits, but then work on maybe that 10 or 15% that needs a bit of work, because the rules were built so long ago. We need to now say, well, it's a different time. So those rules are out and we're putting some new rules in. And I think it's the most important thing to do is to get into schools and to educate children about this. That just takes the pressure off them, to let them know, Moses, I'll throw this to you, that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to take the armor and the mask off and be open and honest and vulnerable with at least someone in your life, so you're not worrying alone and feeling really, really down and not feel like you can tell someone.
No, that's 100% right. I just couldn't agree with you more there, that, you know, to actually face how you feel, and to admit that you're not okay is really the only path back to feeling okay. Is like, because if you can't admit it and you just want to push it away, you know, you don't end up doing anything about it, and you don't learn or build strategies or build, you know, these positive frameworks that will actually get you to feel okay. So, you know, I mean, ultimately you want to become more resilient and be able to deal with, you know, these setbacks as well as you possibly can, that might make you feel certain ways. But, you know, the first step is just, you know, being okay with how you feel and coming to terms with how you react to certain stimulus, and whether that's, you know, emotionally or however you might react, but being aware of that, and sort of being able to face it. I think the awareness of your own emotions and your reactions and behaviors is really important there. And sort of being able to sort of realize what you're doing in the moment. I think that's a huge step. And, being able to say, yes, okay, I'm not okay. How can I change this? Or, what behaviors and what actions can I take? How can I improve in the future to move forward so that I, hopefully I react in a different way next time something similar happens. Having that sort of awareness, and you can't get there if you just keep, pushing your problems away, or you'd never admit that I'm doing fine, mate. No, all good. No, not bad, mate. How are you? You're just constantly, rather than just saying, actually, mate, I'm struggling. I need some help. And getting some advice on, what other ways you could be dealing with the situation, rather than just saying, nah, mate, all good. I think that the most powerful thing is when someone asks how you are, you actually listen to the question and you answer them honestly. You'd be surprised how good the feedback is you get back in return. And I've constantly been surprised at how giving so many friends, strangers, and human beings in general have been, once you actually have, as you say, man up and talk about how you actually feel, rather than just, your cliche throwaway lines of, not bad, mate, yourself, without actually listening to the question, without engaging with the person you're talking to.
Yeah, the tagline on Man Up was Man Up, Speak Up, which is obviously not what we were all told when we were growing up. It was a very different thing. Greenie, I'm all about mental fitness. You guys are as well. So, you got to build emotional muscle to be able to have those conversations that Moises is talking about. So, a lot of blokes, when I talk to them, go, well, I don't even know how to start to ask someone for help. I just haven't got it in me. I said, well, just text them. Anyhow, just let someone know that you're going through stuff, and at least the conversation will then start, because I can guarantee you, like Moises said, people will drop everything and they will try to look after you. It's what we want to do. We want to look after each other. For you, was it difficult to talk to friends and talk to Bella about how you were really feeling, like those bits of you that were really worried and upset when you're going through what you're going through?
Yeah, I think naturally it was, and that's it. That's okay as well. I think that's a human thing. We have those insecurities, and I still have those insecurities. I'm not trying to bury them and show that I'm strong or anything, but I think for me, my way of doing it is just trying to seek that time, not necessarily coming straight out with it, but just spending longer periods with people, whether it be in a one-on-one and group setting, and actually just talking, because eventually, with the people that I trust and love, it's going to come out. And as Moises said, it's not just, hey, how are you, as a throwaway greeting line. It's actually, delving deeper into conversation with them, and eventually it does come out. So, for me, if it's catching up with a friend, it's not just, hey, how you going? How's work? How's relationship? It's start going, well, what are you up to? What's happening in your life? And how are you doing? And, I'm very fortunate. I've had a lot of mates that know me really well and aren't afraid to ask the hard questions and going, how are you dealing with this? How are you dealing with the possibilities of not playing cricket for a year? And it's like, whoa, okay, that hits me right between the eyes, and it's a fearful comment, but it makes me deal with the potential downside of it a lot easier. And it's not hard, to be honest with that, because a year out of the game would be excruciatingly painful. But at the same time, I know that if it does happen, I've got the support network to get through it and come through it. And I think it's that realization that, that's the ultimate worst case, and I've got a year out of cricket, and I've got an opportunity to have 12 months to devote, to my training, but as well as to other parts of my life, then that's also just as exciting. And who knows where that could lead me to. So it's figuring out ways to open up and look at, what actually is the downside, as Moises said, of saying that I'm not okay. It's the first point of me actually going, you know what, I'm not as bad as I think I am. I'm not as good as I think I am. You know, I think, yeah, just for me, spending that one-on-one time, or, you know, one-on-two time, where it's going around to my parents' place and having a cup of tea, and that turns into a kettle of tea because we're still there talking and catching up, and or going out for a walk with Bella in the morning, and eventually we just get talking about it, and I find the courage to open up and talk about it, because obviously it's I want to say it, but I don't want to say it early, but eventually it comes out. So I think it's, yeah, as I said, just in investing that time in yourself, but with those who, you know, can hold you up, and that you can trust, and similarly to be aware of if someone's doing that with you. And I think that's the important part. If you know, you're asking someone how they're going, and they're just saying, yeah, good, thanks, and you're sort of suspecting something's a bit off, or, you know, they're going through a tough time, it's not just accepting that as maybe going, hey, let's catch up for a coffee, or let's go for a walk, and I think that's been, to me, a positive of this time of staying at home, is you're actually spending quality time with your support networks. Going to the pub with a group of 10 mates is, you spend half the time in the toilet, half the time lining up for a beer, half the time lining up for food, and you actually spend 10 seconds finding out how they're doing. Whereas having them round to your place and talking, and you know, the line for the fridge or the toilet's pretty good. So you get to actually spend time with them, and quality time with them.
I couldn't agree more. And I think what you're talking about is asking the second, third, and fourth question. You know, it's the problem I have with "Are you okay?" at the time, which I think, by the way, is amazing. Just like Movember, amazing at looking after men's health. But "Are you okay?" us blokes can really flick that to fine lead, can't we? Really easily. So it's like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm going really well. So tell me what's happening. What's so good in your life? And people just go, "Fuck off! There's no way I'm going to say that to a bloke." Like, that's just me encroaching into his private time. I go, well, you may not want to do that with a stranger or a workmate, but with someone you've known for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, who you love and is your best friend or one of your best friends, you should be able to ask them anything. And if it is a bit awkward, well, it's a bit awkward, and it's a bit vulnerable. It's a bit vulnerable, and that's just the way it is. But we've got to teach Aussie blokes that, because I'm sort of preaching to the converted here. When we're talking to blokes who are a bit more, you know, old school and trying to live up to the stereotype of the typical Aussie bloke who, you know, give it to me, I'll sort it out, don't worry about it, I'll deal with it, and they keep burying those emotions. They're the guys that we're trying to change, and then hopefully if they change, they might educate their kids in a different way. For me, it's
and there's
all
no
about,
downside to doing that.
No, you're absolutely right. There is
Gus,
no downside. It's frightening, though. It's frightening to go there, isn't it? To think about being totally open, honest, and vulnerable with someone when you haven't done it before, or you felt that there's a stereotype around it that makes you not quite as manly as you're meant to be. It's tough, isn't it, Moses?
Yeah, sorry, I was almost cutting you off there, but I felt like for the first 26 or 27 years that I lived my life, I tried to live up to that stereotype, you know, like, you got to be this tough bloke who, you know, never complains, never whinges, just gets on with it. And after a while, those hurdles just get bigger and bigger if you don't learn how to deal with the small ones. And, you know, I just kept pushing him to the side without actually ever developing any sort of technique to deal with them properly. And, you know, by the time you actually start and need to dealing with real problems, real life issues, and you start to get that awareness about you, if you don't have those strategies, you know, I think Greenie mentioned such an important word of, you know, having the courage to, because blokes thinks, oh yeah, I'm brave, I'm strong, but when something bad pops up, they push it away. It's like, that's not courageous. Like, what's courageous is actually what Greenie mentioned, and he's digging deeper and, you know, facing that problem, rather than, you know, oh no, it's all good, it'll sort itself out. You know, unfortunately, it won't nothing ever sorts itself out. You've got to sort it out. So, you know, I think, you know, what Greenie said about having that courage to admit how you're feeling, or having the courage to change a behavior, or to speak to someone, and those types of things. You know, I find courage is just such an important word. and I speak about it a lot. It's one of the things I speak about the most as a captain in the cricket team at the Sixers, is having the courage to fail, because no one ever succeeds without failure. And it's kind of like, doesn't matter what happens this time, just have the courage to do your best. If it doesn't work out, what's the worst that can possibly happen? We'll learn from it, and we'll be better for the run. Like, it's either a positive experience or it's not a great experience, and it's a learning experience. So your sort of mindset should be that it's always a positive experience, because you got your outcome you were after, or it's a learning experience. So it's one or the other. So it's having that courage to fail all the time, to continuously fail, knowing that in the end you're going to be resilient enough to get to the end result that you're after.
Yeah, Michael Jordan, of course, I imagine all of us were watching that ESPN doco. How good was it? He failed, I think he failed 80 odd times for the 3-pointer to win the game. And he said, just give me the ball again, because that's what I'm here for. 20 odd times he made it. And he's one of the legends, right? But he had to fail so often. But it's only the good times that we tend to remember. And he felt safe enough to do that. And I think probably your team at the Sixers feels safe enough because you're leading them in that way. And Greenie, you've had this support network around you all your life, so you feel safe. A lot of blokes out there in Australia tell me when we're out there at sporting clubs or at schools, they're saying, I just don't feel safe. I don't feel like I'm going to be protected if I go out on a limb. So I'm just not going to do it. That's a real barrier for us blokes. If we don't feel safe, we're more likely probably just to keep it to ourselves and bury that emotion down. What would you say to people, Greenie, who are going through that type of dilemma, listening to us going, well, it's all right for you blokes. You've worked stuff out. But for me, who's trying to go there for the first time, I mean, you're not a doctor, but what would your advice perhaps be to them?
Yeah, look, Gus, having been to a lot of your workshops and gone through with my close mates, having lost, a couple of guys to suicide as well, and why I have so much passion around this space is there is tremendous power in being vulnerable. And I think it links back to, what Moises and yourself were saying is accepting the fact that you're not okay is the first sort of early steps back to trying to get somewhere near okay. And okay and good are these words that, again, we put on this amazing pedestal in life that we're expected to be at. But, there are days where, sorry, I'm getting a call. I just declined it. There are days where, we're going to wake up and feel pretty bad about ourselves. And there are going to be days where we feel amazing about ourselves. And it's the ones in between that, sort of end up on somewhere in that scale. And, I really do think is going back to, what's the worst that can happen if I'm really honest and vulnerable with who I am and who am I around. It doesn't really matter who's around me and if I feel safe or not, because, I go to those workshops, or I've been to those workshops walking in with, my club team, not knowing really much about those guys other than they turn up Tuesday and Thursday afternoons and Saturdays. And all of a sudden, by the end of it, we're crying and hugging each other. Similarly at school or at work, ones that I've been to where, no one in the room knows each other, but by the end of it, just through being vulnerable and honest, they're actually a lot closer and aware of each other's space than they think they are. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's very easy to say it. It's a lot harder to actually do it, and doing it is something that helps us. It's helping us, helping yourself, helping those next to you and around you. So it's, just taking that leap of faith within yourself and being vulnerable just trying to be, I heard something of just trying to be perfect for 1 second is just trying to be vulnerable for 1 second. Be vulnerable for 1 second. That 1 second will turn into 30 seconds. Then all of a sudden it's 1 minute. And, once it gets to that stage, you realize it's not all that bad. All you're doing is being honest, and it's going to start that slow loop back again. And, it's again, comes back to, I think I heard Brendan McCullum say it in cricket, is you're not as bad as you think you are when you're losing, and you're not as good as you think you are when you're winning.
Yeah.
And it just evens everything out again and helps you just climb out of that hole where you think you're at the bottom and maybe you're only halfway down, or you may realize you're not even in that hole yet, or all of a sudden you've got people looking out for you, reaching their hands down to pick you up out of it.
You can guarantee for sure that it's never as bad as you think it is in your own head. And that's why Warring Alone is something we're going to try to give guys the emotional muscle to be able to not do that and at least share it with someone. And that's what Got You for Life is about. That one person who has got you for life, you can have that warts and all conversation without any judgment, and they're going to love you no matter what. And you can actually talk about the stuff that you're shameful about as well. It can really go that deep, and trying to talk Aussie blokes into not just being good mates, but being good friends. And that's something that I think we need to keep working on. But listening to you guys today, and hopefully if people are interested in Got You for Life coming to their clubs and so forth, it's really is a beautiful time. And Greenie sat there and watched it, and we hope to do the same with you, Moses. But I've taken you way over the time that I was allocated, but I really appreciate both of you being so open, honest and vulnerable. I admire both of you and have enjoyed your company very, very much, not just here, but over the last few years I've got to know you a little bit. But thanks so much, and I really look forward to the relationship with Got You for Life and the Sixers and Thunders moving forward. So thanks a lot, boys, and have a wonderful rest of ISO before we can get out there and start playing and watching cricket again. So I really want to thank you for your time.